Pragmata is the new IP from Capcom, and it is really good. It has a unique combat system that combines puzzling, shooting, and dodging, and it has a world that is genuinely fun and interesting to explore, with enemy design that is kinda unique and weird. I really like it a lot. On top of that, it has a story that is heartfelt, emotional, and really interesting. It also has one of the weirdest conversations surrounding any game I've seen in a while. And today we will be looking at all of that. Before we can get into the conversation surrounding Pragmata, we need to talk about what Pragmata is. And it is fundamentally a story about a dad and his daughter exploring an space station right after a catastrophe. It's a story about loss, and it's a world that is super fucking cool to explore despite that. You are walking around the ruins of a ruined space station. That being said, if you go back to the opening of the game, you are just an engineer. You're there on a routine job, just fix up some stuff and leave. However, things don't go as planned. And after a earthquake on the moon, you are stranded. Your crew dies and you're left alone. And that little girl wakes you up at a storage, heals you, and then the game begins. You see, all the robots have all of a sudden turned evil. They're going against you, they're trying to kill you. And the entire game revolves around you finding out why. This is also where you learn the fundamentals of combat. That being that to do proper damage to a bot, you have to hack it. How do you hack it? Well, the little girl that you find has this uncanny ability to hack into just about any bot. It turns out that she is a pragmata, or another form of robot, but she has the ability to hack into almost anything that you come across. And the reality of that is you're gonna use it a lot in combat. You see, the combat system, and the thing that I honestly really feels lifts the game up a lot, is a combination of a lot of things. One, you have to shoot. There are weak points on every enemy that sorta is in the game. How do you find those weak points? Well, you go through the blue spots on this little board that comes up when you're hacking. When you have all of the blue spots, then you have the maximum amount of time. You go into the green little circle thing, and the hack is complete. You see the weak point for as long as possible. However, you might not be able to pick up all of the blue spots, or maybe you only get a few of them. That's just less time for you to shoot those weak spots before they inevitably go in again and you gotta reveal them again. However, the game plays around with this sort of super simple mechanic quite a lot. And the ways it does it is by using mods. Essentially, you can add different mods to your hack. So you can have one that confuses the enemy, turning them into being an ally for a little bit. There are ones that makes them exhaust faster, that stuns them, and so on. And honestly, all I could ask for is just more of that. I really like how it plays with it. It also plays with it in the sense of a certain story point where an enemy is slightly more corrupt than it is before, and it becomes harder to hack. There's a lot of ways that they play around with this system, and a lot of them are really unique and really cool. They're also hard as hell sometimes, because not only do you have to hack the enemy, but there's no time slowing down or anything like that. You gotta be on your toes, meanwhile paying attention and dodging enemies while being sure that you don't touch any of the wrong nodes. It's really fucking fun, if I'm being honest. It also is something that I really haven't seen a lot of games do. It combines these like somewhat Souls-like combat styles with like puzzles, and I think it is fun. I think it's genuinely a good evolution of a shooter that I haven't seen before. At least not being done like this. And this is extended towards the game's bosses. You see, all of the bosses have weak points and their own mechanics and so on. Some of them shoot mines, some of them have antennas that shield certain parts of the hack. And you have to go around and then shoot off these fucking antennas that are on different parts of the enemy's body so you can get access to the full hack again. It's fun. It's really interesting because it does play around with this like hacking mechanic while also giving you unique attacks to avoid. You also have this weapon wheel that you see me bring up a few times, which is color coded, and the different colors does suggest different things. The white weapon is your primary weapon. It is the one that you will be bringing up multiple times, and it will recharge itself when you are done using it. It starts out being a pistol, but you also get the option to have it be a auto rifle. Now, there's also a green area on that weapon wheel, which starts out being able to hold one weapon, and by the end it can hold two. They are more utility focused weapons. This can be weapons that stun enemies, or weapons that make hacking easier, or a mine launcher that allows you to put different hacking mods into a mine and then launch it at enemies, which you can then sort of bait them into. All effects that can be incredibly powerful, although the one that I ended up using quite a lot was the Riot Blaster, which is essentially just a grenade launcher that stuns enemies for a little bit. However, you also have your blue weapon. Your blue weapon is a defensive weapon. There are 3 of them. There's a defense shield that you throw down like a Titan bubble in Destiny. It's a giant bubble that kind of just surrounds you. You can shoot out of it. Enemies can't shoot in, and it's a shield. Then there is the clone, which is a decoy that you deploy of yourself that takes enemies' attentions. Then you also have the decoy drones. The drones essentially is just a thing that you click and then you can switch away from it over to another weapon, and then they'll passively shoot enemies while you're doing something else. Then you have your red weapons. Again, it starts out being able to hold 1 weapon, and by the end you can have 2 of them. Now they are damage weapons. This is things like the overcharge laser, a shotgun, a rocket launcher, a money launcher. Yeah, I'm not kidding. You can shoot money in this game. And on top of that, you also have one of my personal favorites, a plasma auto rifle that is kind of like a trace rifle from something like Destiny, like just a permanent laser that you hold in to shoot, that does a shit ton of damage and builds up their stacker bar. When the stacker bar is full, which can be done through just doing damage to it after you've hacked it, but usually it's progressed faster like through different hacks and combining it with like the different red weapons that you can get this sort of a finish on an enemy. It's a pretty fun system, and honestly I really like it. There's also a lot of experimentation that you can do within that system. And honestly, I think my favorite part of the combat though has to be the fact that it's also story. You see, there are certain times and certain plot points where some of the characters might be weaker, and as an example, when it happens to Diana, it is shown directly in gameplay with how you can hack and certain things just being slower to do. I think it's a kind of cool storytelling mechanic that you don't often see, where games often have something happen to the main character and pretend like nothing is wrong. I really like the fact that they don't do that here, and in my opinion, it makes the game that bit better. I also really like the different weapon varieties. Again, with the red damaging weapons, I very rarely use some of them, like the rocket launcher. I didn't find myself really enjoying whatsoever, and that is partially because it has an extremely long charge time for what I feel like isn't a lot of damage, where something like the precision overcharge laser I used a lot. Even though it had a large charge time, it was still pretty strong, and if I hit the precision shot, it kind of worked like a sniper in other games. You get a shit ton of damage. And I also used the laser beam rifle a lot, because using the laser beam rifle I could build up that stagger, which allows me to either outright kill enemies for the most part, or if it's a boss fight, do a major bit of damage and giving you unique areas to explore and all that. That all being said, there is also this element of exploration. You see, the world that you'll be exploring is a rendition of Earth. And what I mean by that is that there are certain parts of the world that's been taken and then it's been 3D printed and replicated on this moon base to make it feel like home. One of those things is Times Square in New York, and it's a striking thing to see when you're going through the game. When I got there the first time, I genuinely stopped up for a bit. It was 1, beautiful, and 2, kind of striking. This AI had 3D printed it, because in this future you could basically 3D print anything no matter how big. And while 3D printing it, there was a few mistakes, and you can see those mistakes. With a table turned on its side and like the roof being on the floor and whatnot of a room. It's interesting enough to keep me engaged with those areas. Not only that, but are genuinely pretty well hidden items and fun items to find, and each area have their own new unique enemy types and so on and so forth. But what I think really catches me more is just the genuine beauty of it. Especially the second area, the Terror Dome that you find. It is your nature-focused area. There'll be simulations of lightning and so on in there. But there's the scene where you get to the ocean, and it's just really striking, even though it's fake. And the entire game is about building up this relationship between the main character Hugh and the girl on your back, Diana. And in this scene, you sort of teach her about the ocean, and she ends up wanting to go and see it. And the entire game sort of revolves around that relationship. And in the same way, Diana will also tell you when there's items near you when you use the scan ability that she has. You see, so you can scan around and then you can find different items, some of them being upgrades for your main character, both in terms of the hacking ability of Diana, the little robot girl that can do the hacking, but also your weapon's strength and your suit's health. And of course, there's also just a general cash flow of money that you can spend on upgrading different items within the game. On top of that, you can also find the REMs, and they are used as a sort of blueprint to have an item be replicated. This doesn't serve any practical gameplay purpose, as they are all meant to be gifts for Diana. So you can basically have her have a little house in like the shelter that you get where you can like sort of place them. So there'll be this house set with a TV and some toys and drawings, and she'll bring you drawings as you go through the game that she's made of herself and you. It's honestly super fucking cute, and it really does settle you into the world a lot more than it might otherwise have. And speaking of Diana, you can also talk to her. And while initially doing so will just have them talk about recent things that's happened in the campaign and how they're feeling and how they're holding up and so on, eventually you can unlock the ability to play hide and seek with the little robot girl Diana. It is fucking cute. I really fucking love it. It is wonderful to see, and it's a really cute dynamic between them. That being said, the one issue that has been permeating throughout a lot of games where you have a sidekick, in my opinion, is the fact that there's a tendency to have them solve puzzles for you or point out the obvious. As an example, when you have beaten Pragmata, you unlock hard mode, and hard mode is actually pretty tough. And when you die in Pragmata, Diana will point out the way you die and how you can avoid it. Now, you can imagine that gets a little bit irritating when you're borderline being one-shot by every other enemy and then you die and Diana's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't die. Like, yeah, I fucking know. It's the same thing Atreus did in the old God of War games, or rather old the 2016 God of War games. That's already 10 years ago, Jesus Christ. And it's not something that I mind too much, but at the same time, I have to sit here and be a little bit, that's a little annoying in the length. However, it's not something that I noticed throughout my first playthrough of the game, as on the normal or standard difficulty of the game, you don't, in my opinion, it isn't really super tough. It is challenging enough. But overall, the dynamic between the two is really sweet. They're both really well written, even though there's this period at the beginning of the game where Hugh is supposed to hate all bots, and he kind of just forgets it the second he sees Diana. But it is what it is. It's not something that I mind too much. I think the story really sort of holds itself together other than that. Speaking of the story of Pragmata keeps you on your toes. That is because it is fairly short. The entire runtime of the game runs between 10 and 15 hours, and honestly, I enjoy that. It keeps the pace pretty fast, it keeps it pretty tight, and I genuinely tend to enjoy it. They always introduce new mechanics with every new area, be it hidden enemies, secret walls, hidden walls, new hacking abilities, and so on. It's fun. It keeps the game feeling pretty fast, while also giving the story a time it needs to grow. It's just really well done overall. I will also say it's a game that, while it does have all of the speed and action that it needs to and the fast pacing, it's also a rather emotional story. A story where, I will be honest, by the end I shed a manly tear. You know, it's really good. It's really, really good. And it's one that I genuinely really found myself enjoying a lot more than I thought I would initially. And that is also majorly due to the fact that I think Diana is written realistically without getting too much into the super annoying part of being a child, and they get away with that because she's an AI, she's a robot. They can have her be the perfected version of whatever. But that's also why we need to get into a little bit of a weird discussion surrounding Pragmata. Very quick warning here before we get into the actual posts. The two I'm gonna discuss, I believe, is obvious rage bait. I don't believe that they're actually something anybody believes in. I think that should be clear going into these. That being said, they still are floating around out there, and I wanted to make fun of them because they're really weird. When it comes to the conversation and why some people are calling it weird, we have to look at Twitter mainly, where people have made arguments such as this. Diana from Pragmata has been censored. Instead of wearing the spats, she now wears some weird grey mesh under her coat. Said coat also has been made significantly larger. I miss the days where we could see girls' panties in video games. Now you have to look at this one quote here. I've blurred out the Twitter name for obvious reasons, no harassment, all of that from my side. But holy fucking shit, man. This dude is dead ass arguing that the game is woke and weird and whatnot because he can't see a, like, child's panties. What a fucking freak. And then he complains about being blocked on Twitter by the, like, Pragmata team because he posted about how he wanted to look at the child's panties. What a fucking freak. What a literal weirdo. Like, genuinely, how do you even argue with this? First, if the game is bad because you can swing your little wheelie to it, you can swing the wiener while you're playing the game, then you're just a fucking freak in the first place. Then you probably weren't interested in meaningfully engaging with the game. You're only interested in touching that little willy of yours. Now, the second part of this is also just the admittance that you immediately see a literal child in the game and you're like, damn! Like, what the fuck is this? Now, obviously, without, any level of uncertainty, I think this is a drift. I think a lot of people are hopping on this game back wagon because it tends to work pretty well if you want attention from a lot of different people. We saw it with literally every game that's been released in recent memory. And this is unfortunately no different. Then we have a post like this. Funny how you all have parental instincts for a child with a model woman's face plastered on it. Make her look like an actual kid with missing teeth, short hair, bare face, snot, and see if those same parental instincts kick in. This game openly caters to pedos. The gaslighting is over. Now, like I said before we even went into the section, obvious rage bait, but let's just engage with it for a second. The post that they provide is a picture of Diana and then a picture of what I assume is either Photoshop Diana generated or something else. Firstly, just on its face, that shit ain't a kid. That's a toddler you try to put in there, firstly. Diana actually does, in my opinion, at least in my experience and whatnot, look kind of normal. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. At the same time, I feel like it has to be said, I think if you immediately jump in and the assumption is that this game is trying to sexualize this child, you are a weirdo. You are a bit weird if you are like talking and looking at Diana in a sexual manner, thinking about how other people will sexualize her. I don't think that is the common way of operating when you see a child, ever. And hopefully it isn't for you either. It's just a general weird post. And when I talk about how the conversation surrounding Pragmata is just so strange, this is the sort of thing that I mean. People have to sort of put these random ideas into it. And I wouldn't even call some of these political, I just think they are weird. They're obvious rage bait for the sake of rage bait, but I think it is so fucking annoying to see. it genuinely does get to me a little bit, I won't lie, because it does just piss me off, right, at the end of the day, that these sort of things have to float around. Pragmata is obviously not catering to pedos, and if you have any form of a functioning brain, you will probably fucking see that. That being said, no hate to the specific people who posted these pictures. That's also why I have blurred them out. I don't really want to be somebody who arbits hate or anything like that, but I do genuinely believe that these are weird posts to make about a video game child. All of that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed making it here. And if you did, please check out that game. It's fantastic. And with all that being said, hope you have a good day, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.